Imagine walking alone through a dense, fog-heavy forest at night. The silence is absolute. Then, from the trees, you hear a voice calling your name. It sounds exactly like someone you love. There is a strict golden rule shared by the people who live in the shadows of the Appalachian Mountains. If you hear your name, a baby crying in the dark, or a friend humming a familiar tune, you ignored it. These oral traditions predate the internet by centuries, preserved by families living in the most isolated pockets of the mountains. The true horror of this trap lies in the bait. Hearing a comforting voice implies an unseen predatory intelligence has been observing you, learning the exact cadence to lure you off the path. For centuries, our ancestors viewed the wilderness as a calculating force that actively weaponizes human empathy to hunt us. You might assume this auditory trap is entirely unique to the American South, but it appears independently in isolated cultures all across the globe. In Slavic mythology, the deep woods belong to the Leshy. This ancient forest deity protects its territory by imitating the helpless cries of children or dying friends, drawing villagers and timber workers away from the safety of their camps. On the other side of the world, Navajo tradition warns of the Ye-Nad Loshi, or skinwalker. These malicious witches represent a corruption of nature, waiting for victims to hear a familiar sound and step across the threshold into the dark. Korean lore tells of the Jongsan tiger, a malevolent mountain spirit that sacrifices weary travelers by perfectly imitating human speech. Modern horror cinema constantly recycles this exact hunting mechanic. It works because it bypasses our logical defenses and strikes directly at our emotional vulnerabilities. The universal horror of these entities rests in the uncanny valley of sound, a global recognition that our empathy is our greatest vulnerability. So, what physically happens to the environment when a wanderer gives in and follows that mimicking voice? Those who survive report severe geographical distortion. The trail you have walked your entire life suddenly fractures, paths loop back on themselves, and familiar landmarks completely disappear. The voice always stays just out of reach, forcing the victim to walk in exhausting circles for hours until the sun finally comes up. This sudden loss of spatial reality is a staple in both modern Appalachian missing person accounts and deep Slavic thicket encounters. A disoriented traveler can easily be swallowed whole by the terrain. The moment you follow the voice, you step out of the ordered human world and into a surreal domain where the wilderness itself dictates physical reality. Even for those who manage to survive the night and find their way home, the ordeal is rarely over. In the Appalachian Mountains, locals say the victim has lost their shadow. Their physical body returns, but they stop speaking and stare blankly at the wall for days. Slavic Lushy tales describe a similar fate. Abducted victims return as feral, mindless changelings, stripped of their humanity. These stories were traditionally used to keep children away from treacherous terrain and nocturnal predators. By turning the woods into a place of intelligent terror, communities effectively policed their own borders. Folklorists see this as a form of social behavioral programming designed for survival. But there is a deeper evolutionary psychology at play. The mimic represents our primal terror of deception. These monsters are a proxy for the untamed wild. They serve as a reminder that a lie can sound close enough to the truth to completely destroy you. The myth of the mimic endures because it reminds us that we are just fragile guests in the wild, and the human connections we rely on most are exactly what make us so vulnerable in the dark.